Your peace of mind starts here. You're in a tough position doing something for the first time. You're told you need to help, but you don't know where to start. When looking for support, it's difficult to know what questions to ask. My name is Betsy Miller with Home Instead in Orange Park, Florida. And today we're going to talk about the questions to ask a home care agency. Number one, are you licensed, bonded, and insured? So in the state of Florida, where my agency is located, an agency needs to be licensed. And there's a lot of steps that we have to take to get to that licensed designation. So that is a protection for the people that are looking for care. But there's other types of licenses, and that's important to understand. So we're an agency. There's also a nurse registry in Florida, or there's also private caregiving. So peace of mind with a licensed agency is we're thoroughly vetted. The state makes sure that we have enough money to pay our caregivers, to keep our doors open. It makes sure that we have insurance, that we're protected from both liability, workers' comp, if a caregiver gets injured in your home. So it's really, really important to ask those questions about licensure, liability insurance, and workers' comp to make sure that you're covered on all aspects when you have a caregiver come into your home to take care of a loved one. Number two, how long have you been in business? When our agency started over 26 years ago, there wasn't a lot of competition. People didn't know that home care existed. Fast forward 26 years, and there is an agency or a company, a competitor on every corner. So it's really important to understand, who are you hiring? How long have they been in business? Are they reputable? Because if they only started last week, they may only have 2 caregivers on staff. My agency has over 55 caregivers. So if someone doesn't show up one day and you need to get to work, we can make sure that you have a backup and don't go without care. Number 3, are employees W-2 or independent contractors, and how does that affect care? This is really important because an employee is someone that the agency can train. They can make sure that they are, if they're weak in an area or they need more training in an area, we have the ability to have a trainer go in and train them to get better in that area, or we can observe to see where they start. Even when we first start with them as an employee, they can tell me that they have 15 years experience, but unless I have the ability to oversee what they're doing and train them, I truly don't know. An independent contractor may have a CNA license, and I might be able to, verify that, but I don't really have the ability that if they show up late or they aren't doing all the right things, that's going to be up to you as the person hiring them to determine whether you want to keep them employed. The same with a personal caregiver. If they don't show up, you really don't have any recourse. There's no administrative staff to call, so you're on your own. So make sure that you are understanding of the different types of employment contracts. Number 4, how do you select and screen caregivers? This is important. You want to understand, what is their hiring process? Do they hire somebody in one day, or do they have a whole screening process? So do they do background checks, reference checks, assessments, competency assessments? Do they check their driving records? Driving records also can be things that it's not just about driving, but if somebody has a bunch of parking tickets or they've had their license suspended, it shows a little bit about their character as well. So checking the driver's license is important, a drug screen, or just a criminal background check, where in Florida, there is actually FBI level 2 background check that is mandatory for agencies. So you get that peace of mind across the board. Number 5, are your caregivers trained and certified? Anyone can go and get a CNA license and take a course and say that they're a CNA. People always call and they ask me, are your caregivers CNAs? And I'm like, well, yeah, some are, but we operate as home health aides. But again, that means nothing. That actual agency has to do training to make sure that their caregivers are at the level expected for their clients. So it's important to ask, how long is your training? How many days is your training? What does your training entail? Do you train specifically on dementia and Alzheimer's? Do you train specifically on a Hoyer if there's a Hoyer lift involved? So these are all questions that are important questions to ask, and don't get hung up on the CNA designation, because I've met a lot of CNAs that aren't at the level that they need to be for home care. Number 6, how do you ensure quality care? I would assume that agencies do things differently. We're part of a franchise that's been in existence for over 25 years, so we have a lot of, history behind how to ensure quality care. So number 1, we have a nurse on staff that is there to train our caregivers, to help them observe, to give us advice too when we need it. Secondly, comprehensive caregiver matching programs. So when we come out and do an assessment, we want to know all about your loved one. What type of work did they do? What type of career did they have? Do they go to church? Do they like to watch sports on TV? Do they like to read? Do they like music? It's not just about the medical history. We want to know who they are as a person, so when that caregiver comes in, they have something in common. They have an ability to have, a rapport between each other, because that quality of life improvement makes all the difference. On top of that, we have client care coordinators that come out as often as needed to check in on you, to check in on your loved one, and to check in on the caregiver, just to make sure that that care is everything that you expected. So there's a lot that goes into the quality of care for a home care agency. Number 7, if a caregiver needs to cancel a shift, do you have adequate staff to replace them on short notice? We get calls all the time from people who have private caregivers in the home, and that caregiver has to have surgery, or they're moving, or they have a family personal problem, and they don't have a backup. We also get calls from people who are using other agencies, and their agencies can't staff it. So this is a huge problem for families that are counting on these caregivers to come every day or as often on a schedule, and these families have things that they need to do, or they're just exhausted. They are just looking forward to that help being there. So when someone doesn't show up, it's a downer for that family member to try to shuffle things around for that day and make sure that they have care there. So an important thing to ask is, what happens when a caregiver doesn't show up, which will happen occasionally. And in our case, the policy that we have is when we hire administrative staff, every staff member can work a shift. So if needed, we can go out and be a substitute for you at the last minute. And people love that about us. And that's how we differentiate ourselves. So I don't see why other agencies couldn't do that as well. So make sure you're asking those questions, because this is a big deal. You want to make sure that when you're hiring anything, an agency, an independent contractor, or a personal caregiver, what happens when you can't make it to the shift? Number 8, what makes us different? So a lot of people might answer this question differently, and I've thought long and hard on, what makes our agency stand out above others. What would be important to our families? One of the most important things that I pride ourselves on is our administrative team. They've all been with us many years, and it's great to know that when those families call us, they know who they're talking to, they know that they're always going to get support, and they're going to get a good answer. That is hard to come by, because these days, many times, we're just trying to staff shifts, and really those families are like, that should be a given. I want to know that, my answers are going to be answered the right way, and that you care about my situation. And we take the time to do that. That leads me to the second reason, and that's elevate communication. If there's a problem and you need us to come out there, we're going to be in the car, and we're going to have our client care coordinator out there to address that problem immediately. And that again leads to having proper, not only caregiver staff, but administrative staff. And again, that's an agency that does that. You're not going to have that with the personal caregiver or the independent contractors necessarily. And we are a franchise. Why does that matter? Some people are like, oh, well, I don't know if I want a franchise. I'd rather have like a local company. Well, all franchises are owned locally as well, or they have a local office. In our case, my husband and I, we live here, we own the local franchise, we work the local franchise, we have a local franchise office, we do everything ourselves. But the franchise has a network of people that have been in the industry and have a bunch of different, qualities, talents that we can reach out to and get answers. So if there's an issue, I'm sure I can put a question out there to my network and they have an answer for me and they've dealt with it. That is a peace of mind, not only for me as a franchise local small business owner, but also for our families to know that we're not alone on this island of providing home care to families. And there's so many different issues, especially with dementia and Alzheimer's, that every situation's different. But there's some commonality, especially when you throw it out to the world, because we do have caregivers with Home Instead all over the world. So that's a giant network and support group available to you. If you'd like to learn more about working with us, you can go to our website at www.homeinstead.com/193.